is exciting. This is the gathering of the podcasters, some of the podcasters, right? So we have all chatted before about the podcast community here in the association community and how we put out content and support each other. And we've tried to get together at ASAE Annual. Some of us have. We've pitched Podcasters Unite as an ASAE annual session, right? So we're doing it on our own here. We're gonna get together, and this is great because we're gonna talk about what we see in the community, what we're contributing to the community, what we're hearing from the community.
But the ones that I find the most interesting are the regular association execs. Nobody that's going to get up on a stage and talk. It's somebody that we pull in and really pull out some intricacies about how they're doing their job that's unique, that everybody could learn from. It doesn't always go into how to be a better entrepreneur. They're not really how-to as much as to really get to the core of what makes an entrepreneur tick. And from the association side, what makes it a thriving association tick. Is it hard to do this sober, Ben?
It's, it is different. That's all. So it is funny to think back and think, well, what are my favorite episodes? I think I have favorite episodes and I have favorite guests, right? It's really interesting. Like we've had some really incredible people like Dr. Jason Leahy from Illinois Principals Association, who is very much an intrapreneur who launched ELN, which is Ed Leaders Network inside of IPA as this extension. Like we all work with associations. Illinois Principals Association is a state-focused principals association, and yet he launched this grant program to create micro-credentials and go to colleges and get them to accredit those things, and then like drag this thing across 16 other states and like replicate the model. He's built this juggernaut of a business inside this little state education association. And so for me, I look at people like that and he just makes me want to get up and run a 5K. And
did you say intrapreneur earlier? Yeah. What is an intrapreneur?
So if you Google it, I'm sure it'll give you a definition, but...
Well, isn't that part of why we're podcasting, right? Because there's all these great stories about how people are moving up through the ranks at associations, and there are all these stories that aren't being told. I think each of us has had guests where we were blown away by what they said, and you're thinking, why isn't this a session at annual? Why wasn't this discussed at the tech conference? And I think that's part of why we're doing all the storytelling. Hey, speaking of storytelling, Ben and Dave, you talked about kind of entrepreneurship. What I have found in my podcast in the last, 14 months is the organizations that are thriving are reinventing their organizations and bringing an entrepreneurial mindset often to their governance, but much more often to their conference.
I've noticed that for Association Chat, it's been around for a little bit, the reason why, the why behind it, the episodes, why those episodes have changed exactly because of what you guys are talking about right now. And that is the fact that the association industry is changing or needs to change. I don't know.
KiKi, we probably all get texts from some listeners who'll say, what a great episode, I'm sharing this with my staff. So when you get those texts, you know that you've impacted someone and maybe you've sparked a conversation. So
I do not care if anyone listens to the podcast. Because
do we have a BS button on our
right?
I'm sorry.
Wait.
I'm fascinated you think that, DC, because I really and sincerely do not care. My interest in the podcast is what I get out of that conversation. I love talking to people, and that's what I care about.
Podcast is so the authenticity of it, and the fact that I have two really smart co-hosts means that like I don't know what anybody's going to say from minute to minute sometimes, and it's enthralling.
One of the things this community really struggles with the most is the connection between governance and execution in my world as it relates to IT, right? The governance and the goals and so on making their way into the organization's operations and management in a way that allows IT to elevate the mission, vision, and business objectives, as opposed to being seen as a potential roadblock to the mission, vision, and business objectives.